Hey, it's Phil Lee returning with another edition of Inside Digital Media. And in this episode, I'm going to discuss the theory of the long tail. It's an internet merchandising theory developed in 2004 and popularized by Chris Anderson, who is a writer at Wired Magazine. In mid-2006, he further elaborated and documented the theory with the release of his book, The Long Tail. And about the same time, Lee Gomes, who has a column in the Wall Street Journal, challenged the concept. But first, let's talk about what is the concept. Essentially, Anderson's point was that internet merchants are going to be able to have gigantic inventories. And because of that, if you look at the inventory distribution, at the head of the distribution, the popular content is large, and then you have it tailing off into what he calls the long tail of less popular items. But since a physical store can't stock all of these less popular items, and an internet merchant can, there's going to be a lot of buyers come in to buy content from the long tail. That's his theory, that the long tail is going to generate demand for items that generally were not sold in the terrestrial markets because they simply weren't available. It's a good theory, but as I say, about a year and a half after he published his article in Wired Magazine, in mid-2006, Lee Gomes of the Wall Street Journal challenged the theory, because what he had done, Gomes had contacted a number of the merchants and sources that Anderson had used for his original research to investigate, what was the actual experience of these merchants. And what he found is that sales were increasingly being concentrated at the head of the tail, even though the internet merchants were having very broad inventories. The tails were very long. That an ever shrinking percentage of those titles, for example, in books or songs, were accounting for the predominant dollar amount of sales. Now, Chris Anderson has his own response to that, and in the blog notes to this video post, I have a link to Anderson's response, and you can read it. He speaks well for himself, and he makes some excellent points. But my reason for bringing up the concept of the long tail now is I kind of had my own epiphany about it here after Christmas when I went shopping at iTunes, because I got an iTunes gift card for Christmas, and it, of course, led me to go to iTunes. And what I discovered about the long tail was something that should have been obvious to me, but wasn't, and that basically I do think that the long tail is a powerful competitive weapon for the internet merchants. But maybe not so much for the reasons that Anderson was emphasizing. Let me explain. When I used my iTunes card to buy some more songs, I first started searching in the long tail. There were some obscure titles of tracks that probably everybody out there that's looking at this video has no interest in, but they're very much of interest to me, and I'd never been able to find them. So with this new experience, I think, well, here's a good opportunity to go look and just see how big the inventory is at iTunes and see if I can find what I want. Well, sure enough, I was able to find them. So I initially started looking in the long tail, and I found what I wanted. And then, once I was in the store, I said, well, let me shop around at some more popular stuff that I really kind of want, but was never sufficiently motivated to initiate a shopping experience to buy them. And so what I discovered after this experience was that about 2/3 of what I had bought was in the head of the distribution, in other words, the popular stuff, and only 1/3 was in the tail. So really, it did lead me to buy a lot of popular stuff, but the thing that drew me into the store was the tail. Admittedly, confessedly, I got the gift card, and that's what drew me in, but if the main factor other than that got me in is I wanted to search that long tail. And to underscore that point, buying these things from iTunes was great, but I still had this nagging, disappointment that there were DRMs in those tracks. So I decided, well, I'll just try out the Amazon, the digital store at Amazon, particularly now that they've got this Sony BMG inventory as well as the other three majors. And what I found was that I really like the Amazon store, again, for for two reasons. But one of them is the long tail. It does have a big inventory. And clearly I do like the fact that, there are no DRMs there. And then it's really kind of nice that when I buy tracks from the Amazon store, they automatically go into my iTunes library, which is a big advantage because I had some experience with other MP3 stores where it goes into an obscure folder. I have to find that folder. I have to change the title of the track, and then I have to move it to iTunes. And that was kind of a hassle. But my conclusion is that I should have realized this because it's the same reason when I go shopping for books in the terrestrial world, I go to Barnes & Noble or Borders because I enjoy the browsing experience. Even though I may leave those stores with nothing but popular titles, I go to them because they have a big inventory that gives me this browsing experience. And so really, the long tail in the internet just amplifies that for me, even though most of my purchases may not be in the long tail.